I'm reaching out, yet the sun keeps on setting.
Finally, he's like, okay, anybody else? No one? No? And I was like, and I shoot up my hand, and I'm like, okay, I'll do it.
As I look to the stars, I can feel.
And he goes, oh, another Nissen that can sing.
I cry, help me, Lord.
I was like, I just have to have faith. Like, if God is taking away my voice,
I gotta have faith in the Lord.
I think that he's going to give it back in a way that is 10 times better than me singing opera.
You know when you get a sign from the universe that someone or something is just meant to be a part of your life. Like they just keep showing up from all different angles. Well, that is exactly what happened with my next guest. Back in December, I had a friend randomly offer me some tickets to go see Emma Nissen in concert. But what is so crazy about it is literally just a couple minutes before that, I got a text from a friend who lives all the way back in New York. And it said this: Sarah, have you ever heard of Emma Nissen? I just know you would really, really love her. Her and her voice, they are just unreal. And I thought of you the whole time I was at her concert. So when one day I get these two messages, and when something shows up twice in a day, you know you have to pay attention. I ended up going to the Emma Nissen concert that night, and I was completely blown away. So we want to tell you about Emma. Emma is a Swedish-American singer-songwriter whose music blends jazz, faith, improvisation, storytelling in a way that you've probably never heard before. And I am so looking forward to this conversation. Emma, welcome to the show.
Thank you so much. That was like the best introduction I think I've ever had.
It was a moment for me.
That's crazy.
All in one day, I'm like, okay, I think me and Emma, we're supposed to know each other.
Well, I think so too.
And I have only one grievance with the music of Emma Nissen, and let me tell you what it is.
Tell me, please.
It needs a warning label that says, excuse me, do not attempt if you are a novice singer. My kids and I, we actually have like a joke now where I'll turn on an Emma song, we're blasting it in the car, and then they'll cut the music when I'm doing because of the begotten one. And they laugh because I can't do the riffs. I can't do the scat.
It is comical as well for some of my family. Like I just saw a video today of an old video of me and my brother where I was like, let's see if he can do the riffs. Because sometimes, honestly, I think some of the riffs and the melismas that are in these songs are just like, I think I blacked out when I was writing them or recording them because I'm like, why would I ever do that to myself?
It's so good.
But yeah, no. And there was just like a funny video of we have a lot of fun with it. But you know what? It's never too serious. Like, just do it.
It's never too serious.
No.
So I got to tell my kids that. I'm just going to throw a little in, and I sometimes attempt the trumpet.
Yeah.
It's not as good as yours.
Well, it doesn't matter.
But like once you get going, you just feel like you got to do it.
Totally.
So.
That's the whole point, I think, of music, of enjoying art, is you don't actually have to be good at it. That's the mistake that people make.
Art is art.
Art is
and
art.
It's subjective.
Yeah, it's subjective.
And beauty lies in the eye of the beholder, right?
1,000%.
And I think it sounds good. But truly, your music has become a staple in our home. My girls were actually begging to be checked out of school to be here today. This is a little bit of a different setup than we normally do. We've got Emma behind the piano. If you are listening, you probably can't see this, but she's going to be sitting at the piano for our interview because we want to hear all the musical goodness that comes out of her. But basically, my girls go to bed listening to the podcast. And my daughter on her way out from school today, she was like, Mom, you need to not skip anything with Emma. I want to hear the full story. And so I know you've been on shows before and pieces of your story have been shared, but I hope that More Than Musicians will be a place that we can like tell an artist's full story. Yeah. And so that's what I'm hoping you'll do here with us today. So to get started, Emma, will you tell us where you are from and about your family?
So I was born in California. And I moved when I was 2 to Mesa, Arizona. So that's my home. Yes, I have 4 older brothers. I'm the youngest of 5, the only girl. My mom was born in Sweden. She moved from Sweden to the States when she was 4. My dad's from Michigan, and he moved from Michigan to Arizona when he was in high school. And they met in college. My dad had just been Tony in the summer production of West Side Story. My mom was doing dental hygiene, and she needed to take some extra credit classes that weren't dental hygiene. So she did a lights and like a backstage, one of those
Production
classes. And so they were lobbed together with the acting class. And so as they're all taking roll, my mom's name is Maria. And she's like, "Oh, I'm Maria," introduces herself. And my dad, he turns around, he goes, "I just met a girl named Maria." And that was it. So then they started dating. Yep, they fell in love, dated for 4 years and got married. And then all us 5 children. And then we all play piano. We all sing. The second oldest brother, Simon, he's 10 years older than me. When I was 8, he was 18 and he was going to the same college that my parents had gone to for choral education. And so I kind of just became his guinea pig of how to teach choir, how to teach somebody. So he would just sit me down and he taught me how to read chords and how to improvise. Although it wasn't necessarily like jazz scat singing, he would just be like, "All right, if I play this chord, what are all the notes that would sound really good with it?" And I would sing those. And he's like, "Okay, now mess up, do some notes that don't sound good with it." And then we would do full chord progressions of doing, quote unquote, good notes and bad notes and how to mix those. So I think that really kind of got me set up for improvisation and how to hear, if something didn't quite sound right, how to move it into something that sounded a little bit better. So that was fundamental. And then as well as, I mentioned my brothers, they all played piano. So I grew up, the youngest of these 5, I grew up listening to piano all the time. And I did not actually do as much piano as any of my brothers, and I regret that. So it's on the vision board for 2026 to go back to piano school, piano lessons.
That message.
Yes.
That's deep.
Never
in my
too
heart.
late.
Don't quit.
Never too late. So yeah, but I grew up listening to a ton of it. And my brother, especially the one that's just older than me, Adam, he played a ton and he was really diligent and really, he played all of just the hardest stuff. He would play Rhapsody in Blue. It's a 17-minute Rhapsody, and Hungarian Rhapsody, which was my grandpa's favorite song. He, lots of Billy Joel and lots of all this stuff. And as he was practicing it, he was very diligent and he would go over just like and I would hear this over and over and over again. And so when he was going I'm hearing it in my head, and it would annoy the heck out of him. But I'm in my room or the kitchen or the hallway, and I'm so then as he's getting faster, I'm and I think that helped my recall and my intonation a ton, because I was able to follow along with a 17-minute Rhapsody in Blue or with the Hungarian Rhapsody. I knew all these parts and like the melodies, but then I could find and I think it was a subconscious thing, effort. But I think it was really, those were 2 extremely important parts of my childhood that helped form me into the musician that I am now, as well as just my family being very much, my dad, he got his degree in acting. And so there's just lots of laughter, lots of try it first, and if it doesn't succeed, whatever, the family's a no-fail zone. And so it was just a really great environment for me to try and learn and grow, and lots of music all the time. And lots of eclectic taste. So it's kind of a blend of what I've got.
I love to hear that the atmosphere that you grew up in fostered that sense of like, try it, fail. It's all good. We're not going to make fun of you.
No,
it's all good. There's no, I think that's so important.
Mm-hmm.
We do music lessons, and the families that I see thriving, they have 2 components. And one is that try, fail, it's all good. And 2 is the collaboration. Yeah. They're playing together. And it becomes part of the family culture, and it's really, really cool.
Yeah.
I watched it was a New Year's Eve live that you and your family did.
Yeah.
And that is so fun to be able to share that together, to have everyone participate. And I'm sure it's bonding in a way to have you all be able to be there.
Yeah, we used to leave the door open and have this little gate in front of our door every Christmas season. We would just leave it open and people would just know, oh, the Nissen boys are home, because it would just be filled with music, filled with piano, filled with Simon. He likes to do the louder kind of operatic stuff. But there's always something, and we always go through all of the books that we did as children.
Yes.
So we're going through all of these Broadway books or all of these Billy Joel books or whatever. And it's just so much fun because it just feels like, oh, there's a place to land in a place that I'm very safe and I can try anything and it's going to end up in laughter, not in me like going to my room and just being like, I didn't hit the high note, you know? Yeah. So, I'm really, really grateful. And as time goes on and I meet more people, I realize that it's actually pretty unique to have a family that loves each other so much and is so supportive. I've been so shocked as I've grown up and realized, I think this is sort of like, that kind of sounds probably ignorant to say that, but I think I grew up in a world that was so supportive that I was so shocked that sometimes the world isn't that supportive of people, and it is more cutthroat, especially in an industry where you have to meet certain standards. But I just feel the more that, you know, I see people try, I want to be for them what my family was for me and continue to cultivate an environment of just try and fail. It doesn't matter. You don't have to be the best. And yeah, I think it's a good part of life to see things that aren't your norm. Yeah.
I think to your point, like humor is such an underrated tool to bond and glue a family. I think so often we take things just way too seriously. Yeah. And your family's a really fun example on your Instagram and everything. You know, I feel like I kind of know your mom and dad just based on the things that you post. And how do you think that humor and that lightheartedness has gone on to impact like your confidence as an artist today?
You know, we know that sometimes humor is a way to deflect. Like if you can't cope with something, then you can use humor. And I think that is a component of a lot of things is like, well, I can't take myself too seriously. I just have to see the good in what life has to offer or what this song has to offer and I think that there's a lot of humor in my favorite genres, jazz, and even like tap dancing and a lot of these things that come from African American culture, that there is a lot of sorrow there and a lot of anguish in the history, but I think there's a way to find and make light of certain things through their music. Like you can just tell that in some of these songs, like How High the Moon, Berlin, Live, 1960, Ella Fitzgerald, she is just having the time of her life. She's doing a 7-minute scat solo and no one told her to do that. And she's pushing the drummer's pushing her. And they're just like, you can hear her laugh through half of her songs, you know, and she'll do a wrong note or she'll do a wrong lyric and she just is laughing because she's just like, whatever, you know, like, and everyone loves her because she's Ella Fitzgerald. But, you know, I think you just can't take some things too seriously because then I don't know. Sometimes when you see people that try so hard and then they take themselves too seriously, you're just like, this is uncomfortable for all of us.
It's a hard way to go through life.
It is. It is. So, I don't know. I think my parents have had hard lives in their own ways, but they have always taught me and my brothers that like, okay, what happened and now what? And I've had traumatic things happen to me when I went into the business of just, some people wanting certain expectations of me. And it got to a point where it was just so almost laughable that it was like they would go to this point to come after me because they wanted this thing so bad. And I just remember my dad was like, Emma, you have got to laugh. Like it's almost embarrassing that like they're taking it so seriously. Like you just have to laugh. And so I don't know. I think it's a huge part of what I do is I hear all these songs, all this jazz that I listen to, and I think, wow, they're just having such a great time, even though I know that, you know, not everything in life sounds like this all the time, but it's an escape, and it has been that for me, and I think it's really important just to not take yourself too seriously. Yeah. I don't know if I conveyed everything that I feel about that correctly, but I do feel like it's a very important part of music and expression.
Yeah.
It's just...
That's one of the coolest things about music. It's kind of those moments to go escape. And I kind of feel like I got a taste of the banter with like you and your band at your concert, you know.
Yeah.
It's cool to see how you kind of all look at each other. Like, you know what we're doing. We're going to amp it up, or we're going to solo here. And it's a cool thing. I want to talk about the jazz genre. It's like kind of unique. I feel like from where we're from here in the Mountain West, like to hear jazz played at that level from someone, you know, like you. And I love that.
Yeah.
And so I want to talk about like your influences. Who when I listen to your music, I hear Adele, I hear Stevie Wonder, I hear Frank Sinatra, I hear sometimes Billy Joel.
Yeah.
I hear Ella Fitzgerald. And
I'm so honored.
how and who were you looking to as you're gaining these different pieces, you know, some from your family, but some from outside sources? What does that look like?
Yeah, I mean, I mentioned, so jazz it's an African-American genre originally, and obviously there were a lot of white singers of jazz, like Frank Sinatra. I did listen to a lot of Frank Sinatra. He was kind of my gateway into more of like the Rat Pack, Frank Sinatra, Dean Martin, and Sammy Davis Jr. And I love Sammy Davis Jr. because he is all about humor. You know, everything is just to make it, like he's constantly laughing, and he has the greatest laugh ever. If you ever listen to live albums of him, there are things that are totally not, when you listen to it, because it's in a different time. So you kind of have to keep that in mind. But like, he's got such a great attitude about it. But I listened to a lot of, Black and African-American jazz artists growing up, like Ella Fitzgerald, Louis Armstrong, Sarah Vaughan, and Ella Fitzgerald was the biggest one. I think when I heard How High the Moon live in Berlin, that was where I was like, oh my gosh. But yeah, Stevie Wonder, and just a lot of influences that I think came from jazz. So yeah, Billy Joel is another one.
I love that one.
His just like, I think him to me feels a bit like organized chaos. You know, like there's something in his brain and he's able to vomit it onto a piano, and you're just like, oh my gosh, this is incredible. So I listened to a lot of the main jazz vocalists back in their time of 40s, 50s, 60s, and 20s and 30s, obviously. But I never really got into the instrumental jazz. And so a lot of people are like, oh, you love jazz. And I'm like, yeah. And sometimes I feel like my source is a little bit feeble because it doesn't have like a whole ton of people. But the people that I did listen to, I listened deeply. Yeah. I listened to every single one of their records. I've listened to every single song Ella Fitzgerald has ever put out. Same with Frank Sinatra, same with Dean Martin, same with all these people. But those are definitely... And as I mentioned, my brothers, they have quite a vast spectrum of music that they listen to. And so I got a lot of the, Stevie Wonder. We did Michael Jackson, ABBA, because my mom's from Sweden. And we would listen to Fun. That was obviously a more recent thing, or Walk the Moon, or some Adele. Although Adele wasn't like a huge thing in my life. But then again, Adele didn't really come out with, album after album after album. So, but no, all of the people that you say you can hear are all the people that I listen to. So I'm honored and impressed that you would pick up on it.
I think with Adele, Adele's one of those people in my mind that just has like that raw natural talent. But you like truly are one of those people whose voice is just so strikingly a gift. It's incredible to me. And I kind of want to just like circle back around, is when you were a child, at what point were you like, okay, there's a gift here? And like, did you pursue music? Did you do it in high school? Did you do it in college? Can you kind of take us that way?
Yeah. So my four brothers, we moved when I was 2. So some of them had already been through elementary school, but I think 2, if not 3 of them had gone to the elementary school that I had gone to. And we had a band teacher named Mr. Higgins. And Mr. Higgins had the Nissen boys. And when I came around, I loved music class more than anything, because I thought Mr. Higgins was really cool because he would do this thing where he would play the trombone, and he would have a kid sit right in front of him, and he would open the trombone all the way, and it'd be like an inch away from the kid's face. But we all thought it was so fun. And I remember we had this like end of the semester festival concert thing called the Spring Sing. And we auditioned for solos in it. And it was the Three Little Piggies. And I don't even remember what the solo was, but it was like one line. And I used to not be able to sing in front of people. Like I had to turn my back. I didn't want people to hear me. But I just was like, oh man, I'm going to do it. I'm going to do it. And finally he's like, okay, anybody else? No one? No? And I was like, and I shoot up my hand and I'm like, okay, I'll do it. And I remember he played the little thing and I sang with it and he goes, oh, another Nissen that can sing. And I was like, oh my gosh. I was so tickled by that. Didn't get the solo, but I was, what do you call it when if they're sick, then you stand in.
Like
I was the
understudy.
Understudy.
That's it.
Yes.
Oh, that took me way too long to remember.
I was the understudy for Meg Farnsworth. But alas, Meg Farnsworth showed up that night. So I did not get my debut until a couple of years later. No, but that was kind of the beginning of just like, oh, like I might have something here. And then I think I got more confident singing in church. And then I enjoyed choir in junior high. I took that as an elective. And I remember we did one day the whole year, and in 8th grade as well, that was improv, where she would just play 4-bar blues and we would improvise 4 bars.
Vocally.
And then, yeah. And then we would pass it to the next,
Fun.
And I remember the girls just sweating. They were like, they hated it. And I was like, give another 4 bars to me. I'm like, I'll take it. And I just realized, I was like, I love this. I love not knowing what's going to come out of my mouth. I love not knowing where the song is going to take me. I love just the idea of just creating something on the spot. And so I did jazz ensembles in high school. I did the big choral ensembles in high school as well. And then I did all-state jazz and all-state choir and regionals in high school. And I just really loved it. But it wasn't until probably my sophomore year that I got introduced to Ella Fitzgerald. And I think at that time I'd already been listening to a lot of Frank Sinatra. I never listened to the radio, so that just kind of wasn't... I never was listening to a whole ton of pop. I was listening to jazz and classical music. And then or if I was listening to pop, it usually wasn't like current stuff, stuff from my brothers. And that just kind of was the explosion. And so I got a scholarship to study vocal performance in the same college that Simon and my parents both went to.
What is it, by the way?
NAU, Northern Arizona University, up in Flagstaff, Arizona. And 9 weeks into that, I realized pretty quickly that this was opera. This was not jazz. They didn't have a jazz ensemble, or they did have a jazz ensemble, but they didn't have a jazz program. And it felt like, okay, it's the closest thing. But I quickly realized, like, I don't know what I'm going to do. Like, am I just going to learn how to sing opera and then what? I kind of was like, oh my gosh. And I had taken me so much to get there. I found an apartment and all this stuff. And I was like, how can I tell my parents that I do not want to do this anymore? And 9 weeks in, my vocal teacher, my coach, she goes, hey, there are some ENT students that they practice every semester on usually the vocal students, because it's their instrument, on how to scope throats. And so do you want to be one of those mock patients? And I was like, sure. And so a couple of days before, I was at church and I lost my voice all of a sudden. And it didn't hurt. There was nothing, but I kept trying to clear my throat and it just was not going to clear. And I was like, this is so weird. So a couple of days later, when I go to the hospital, they, just routine questions. And I go, oh, and by the way, I lost my voice recently and I couldn't really push through it. It's like kind of been bothering me. And she's like, okay, well, we'll take a look. Fast forward 20 minutes, she's like, okay, well, you've hemorrhaged your right vocal cord and you have a cyst on your left vocal cord. Wow. We're obviously students. We can't diagnose you. So I would go to an actual hospital and get this diagnosed. And at the same time, I was kind of feeling like, I didn't want to do this anymore, but I didn't have an easy way out.
Yeah.
And I was like, I just have to have faith that whatever happens, now that I have this information that I've hemorrhaged my vocal cord, like it's going to work out. Like if God is taking away my voice per se, I think that he's going to give it back in a way that is 10 times better than me singing opera,
Yeah.
you know? And so I really just held on to that. Like, I got to have faith. And it was kind of the same thing that my parents and I've felt all my life, is that like, okay, it's happened, but now what? How do we move forward? And how can we just kind of maybe not laugh right in the second, but like, how are we just going to move forward? So it was my perfect window to go home. And then I decided to do a mission for my church. And 9 weeks into that, the pandemic happened. And I just remember thinking like, okay, I thought that this is what God wanted me to do. But if God's going to take this away, I think God's going to give it back in a way that's 10 times better than anything I was coming up with as a plan. And I still hadn't really sung. I had surgery to remove the cyst, and I did a lot of vocal therapy. But I was sitting there and I was like, oh, we just got to have faith. I just got to have faith that this is going to work out. And that was when I, for the first time, had written a song. And I was sitting in a church, and I walked over to the piano, and I was like, we just got to have faith. And in my mind, I'm like, faith in the Lord. I was like, oh. And so that was kind of the beginning of my career as it is now of writing music. I was in a very, spiritual, religious place, and I wanted to talk about faith. I wanted to talk about hope and light and all these things that felt dear to me in a way that was non-abrasive, in a way that wasn't like, you need to accept this or else, or in a way that was like, this is how I feel it. Do you feel something from this? Can we talk about it? And I feel like God really pulled through, and I started to write this music that brought back my voice, and I found a new way to use it, as well as like how I could be a missionary in a way that was non-abrasive and just, it felt relatable for me to show up that way through song.
It's cool to see how your unique piece of you, this person who has this like affinity for jazz music, you're out on a mission, and in the unique way that only you could, you then act on, the prompting, whatever you were feeling, and you bring forth your music. So your very first song.
Yeah.
And there's something I wanted to touch on with COVID. Like,
yeah.
I'm in the music industry, right? Teaching piano lessons. We have a mutual friend, Matt Johnson, who's also in the music industry.
Matt Bradley?
Yeah, Matt Bradley Johnson.
Oh.
Bradley's his middle name.
I didn't know that.
Yes, that's a fun
You learn
fact.
something new every day.
I know.
I've learned so many people's middle names today. Okay.
I know, yeah. And the producer, Talmadge.
Yeah.
Talmadge Platt.
Platt.
So everyone knows.
All right.
But what I think is so cool is like at that time, I think the world needed music. Because
so too.
our businesses boomed.
Yeah.
That doesn't really make sense, like economically. Everyone was kind of freaking out, but for some reason, both of us experienced growth in our businesses. And I think you went out there and you brought something that people needed to hear.
Yeah.
You needed that piece.
I think we saw a lot, like Facebook sort of boomed, especially for missionaries that were doing the same thing that I was doing. We had limited access to what was going on out there just because that's how it was. But what I did see was always, despite all the tragedy that happened, there was always, good news clips. And it was people that, though they were locked in their apartments, whole apartment buildings were singing, a song together.
Yeah.
And it's stuff like that you're just like, that is what and I think the missionaries that had the most success were the ones that were incorporating art, whether it was singing or dancing or another form of vocal anything, or just, or just visual arts. And I think it's not to say that you cannot feel the Spirit through knocking doors or hearing a sermon or whatever the traditional in four walls is. But I think it was really, really important culturally and also historically for religion / spirituality to have a moment of like, hey, I can feel this in a way that's outside of four walls. I can find God in people. I can find God in art. I can find God in this experience. And it was just something that like, it was sort of taboo before. It was like, well, that's not, we don't listen to that on Sunday because that's not, and now, I mean, I wrote music that it does not sound like what I grew up listening to. But people are like, oh, I listen to your music every Sunday. I'm like, that's crazy because
on my worship playlist for sure.
But like, it's crazy because they find something in something that I was finding God in writing it and experiencing it. And then they're able to find, and it's just this beautiful thing that like when you express yourself in the way that is true to you, people see that. And you're not supposed to resonate with everyone. And so you're just supposed to find your cup of tea or your people that you can resonate with. And I think that was one of the silver linings of the pandemic, that people found individuality and learned how to express it and learned how to talk about God through their gifts. And that was a huge step for me.
I love that story, and thank you so much for sharing it. I am hoping we can hear God have faith.
Absolutely.
I'm reaching out, yet the sun keeps on setting. Pain and we go, but bringing on the blue. As I look to the stars, I can feel the tears start swelling. I cry, help me, Lord, what am I to do? I gotta have faith in the Lord, that the sun will rise tomorrow and I'll be stronger than before. I gotta have faith in the Lord, that these trying times will help me and I can reap my reward. I look around and begin to count my blessings. Oh, one by one, and I see what God has done. My heart is full and I don't need to keep on guessing. I am a child of God even after all is said and done. But I gotta have faith in the Lord, that the sun will rise tomorrow and I'll be stronger than before. I gotta have faith in the Lord, that these trying times will help me. I can reap my reward. Oh, and I know that my Savior's walking with me, by my side, in my heart and in my mind. He's the light of my life that I need to survive, and I'm all that I am because of Him. So I'm gonna have faith in the Lord, that the sun will rise tomorrow and I'll be stronger than before. Gotta have faith in the Lord, that these trying times will help me. I can reap my reward. I gotta have faith in the Lord. The sun will rise tomorrow. I'll be stronger than before. He's the light of my life that I need to survive, and I'm all that I am because of
There's no good way to come back in. It's too epic. This is the funnest job, to be able to sit here live with you. That was
Likewise.
awesome.
This is one of the best parts of my job, is I love doing this. So,
Well, thanks for being here. So I want to talk to you about faith in general. You are someone who has been very open with the ebbs and flows and journey of faith.
Yeah.
And it's something I think resonates really well and with a lot of people, that it's something that's kind of been wrestled with maybe in your life. What I want to ask you has given you the courage to be open and honest about that wrestle, about faith, even when it's messy?
yeah. I think, well, if we go back to I talk about how it goes up and down and up and down. And one of the biggest things that was helpful for me was probably when I was like 13. I had a friend that her family was just picture perfect. They did everything right. They always believed. They just had so many miracles and everything was wonderful. And I just remember feeling, when you're younger and in church and things, you don't have the nuance of everything. And so I just felt like, oh my gosh, like, I don't know if I believe in this. And now I think that my whole entire testimony of everything is crumbling. And I was feeling very worried about my salvation and everybody else's. And it is one of the things I think that we're learning to talk about more. That is a really healthy part of navigating faith and our relationship with religion. But at the time, I remember reaching out to her and I was like, can you help me read my scriptures and help me feel the Spirit? Because I don't think that I can anymore. And it was a little bit dramatic, but I was 13, so. And she wrote her testimony on the beginning of the scripture. And one of the things that she wrote in there was, I don't know a lot of things, but I believe much. And I was like, oh, what? She doesn't know everything? And I kind of, for the first time in my life, realized that was an option, was that you could believe in something and not know it and still be there. And for my 13-year-old brain, I was like, oh my gosh, this is insanity to even unlock this part of who I could be. And it didn't really change astronomically, but it definitely helped me feel more comfortable with my doubts. And I had a couple more times of just like an ebb and a flow and being super high and super low. And I've learned to sort of rebrand it as it's not low, it's just maybe times of, and I wouldn't even know what to call it because I haven't really thought about this, but times of intense faith in maybe religion or spirituality, or times of being maybe less curious or less faithful. I don't know, because those kind of have negative connotations, but just maybe times when it's not as religious.
Mm-hmm. More spiritual?
Yeah, more spiritual, but maybe less religious. I don't know. Yeah, I haven't really come up with a great way to explain it because I think those words mean different things to other people anyway. Mm-hmm. So it kind of depends on who you're talking to. But I would go up and down and up and down. And it wasn't until after my mission I came home and I just kind of was in one of those, I guess we'll just call it down for right now since that's the language we're using. But I was in one of those down periods where I was like, I just really don't know. And I was having a lot of anxiety about it because I felt like if I didn't know one thing still, that I was concerned about my salvation. And I had a friend from Germany. She was visiting and she was talking to me about how she had read an article that explained faith as a house. And I'm a very visual person. Obviously, I write songs that paint visual pictures because that's how I see things. I need to be able to paint them or see them in my...
You're artistic.
Yes, yeah. And so she was like, yeah, so I read the article, but paraphrasing, it's basically some things don't age well. Some things age great. Some things are your foundation. But it's also possible that you could decorate your interior of this house with some carpet that in 5 years you're like, what was I thinking that I even had that opinion? And the article talks about this is how it is with houses and our faith. It's sometimes you have a pillar of your faith that you believe so strongly, and sometimes, depending on what it is, it starts to rot, and you're like, this isn't holding up my house anymore. And it's that's okay. It doesn't mean everything is lost. It just means that maybe you have to update that beam or that support and do it with something stronger, which I think with more knowledge comes more power. And so you educate yourself on something and you replace this beam or this fixture in your mental house with something stronger, with more evidence, with more feeling, with more, knowledge. And then there are things that are just it's a painting or it's carpet or it's whatever. And it's you have to know what your foundations are and your pillars are. And then other things that are just it's your choice to decorate your house that way. You're allowed to feel that way about this thing, but it doesn't mean that everyone wants their house decorated that way. And then also just like sometimes, we talk about deconstruction. I like calling it reconstructing because it feels like an ongoing process, which I believe that's what faith is that you're constantly reconstructing your values, your morals, if they need to be addressed, your feelings, your relationship with God, your relationship with others because of God, all these things. And sometimes you have a room that's dedicated to a thing in your faith, and it just like gets blown by a hurricane, and you still have the rest of your house. So it's no use in bulldozing it, but you can live in your house while still reconstructing a part of it. Sometimes you might tape it off. Sometimes you might not go in there very often, and you might not show people that room in your house. I know I'm digging like way deeper into this metaphor than needs to be, but for me, it was so helpful because I was like, this is my house that I am building. This is my faith. This is my relationship with God or with a higher power or with life or the universe or like whatever I choose to believe in, like this is my house. And I realized that there were some decorations in there that I had not put in there. And that's what was making me feel off is I was like, I did not put that lamp there and it's really stressing me out. I'm like, I've got to take that to Goodwill. And so I did. I went through a period of just like decluttering my mental house. And there were some doors that I closed that I did not revisit. And there are some that I haven't revisited still, but they're still part of me. They're part of my past. And I'm not upset about it. I'm not upset about who I was or just who I am currently. And I think that was really, really important for me to learn because it made me realize back to the individuality of art and expressing oneself is like, if God created us this way, then he celebrates that about us, there was no other Jesus. Like Jesus was Jesus and his house looked probably a lot different than the other houses I've seen. And I think that there's reason to celebrate the things that he was wonderful at. And there are reasons to celebrate other people and what they're great about, how they reach out and how they emulate Christ and how they, I don't know, it really helped me understand that it's okay to not know. And it's helped me navigate and feel comfortable because I realize like I'm in my own home. So, you asked what gives you the power to be forthright about your ups and your downs. And I think it just is like, I realized too, not going back to that's the testimony in that scripture. And then just the people that I've met now, like the people that are honest with me, that I realize have doubts, but still continue to be good people and try and figure it out. I was like, wait, that's me. You're still a good person and you're trying to figure it out. So, I mean, I would consider myself it doesn't look the same, but maybe on paper that I am in one of those kind of down areas right now where I'm not as religious, but I'm really striving to understand my spirituality. I'm looking at my house and I'm just like, okay, what is applicable? Where do I feel safe? Why does that carpet still green? Like, let me just get it out of here. And so, but I'm like really, I'm really loving it. And you find people that feel the same as you at different times and you're able to talk about it. They're able to give you an insider tip, an interior decorating tip. And you're like, oh my gosh, I needed that. Mm-hmm. And anyway, I tend to go deep with metaphors and I probably explained that one for way longer than needed to be explained, but it was so helpful to realize I'm okay if I have a doubt and I'm allowed to have that doubt and let it be part of my house. And I don't need to change it until I feel moved to change it, if that ends up being how it goes.
This episode was made possible by The Piano Place. I can promise you that I will never run an ad on this show that I don't wholeheartedly believe in. This is one service I can confidently put my name behind. When I started The Piano Place 10 years ago, I had no idea just how deeply music would impact people. I've watched shy kids find their confidence, teens discover an emotional outlet, moms rediscover their connection to themselves, and families strengthen their homes through music. At the Piano Place, we match every student with a teacher who fits them, their unique personality, and their goals. Everything from our recitals to our state-of-the-art studio locations are designed to help inspire creativity from the moment our students walk in the door. Our tagline, Making More Than Musicians, gives insight to our main mission, which is to help kids learn to love and stick with lessons, all while discovering the great life lessons along the way. With 12 locations across Utah, it's never been easier to get started. You can visit our website, thepianoplaceutah.com, and if you mention More Than Musicians, you will get your first lesson free. You can call us at 801-893-2417. That's 801-893-2417. Give us a call today and we'll get you taken care of. I love the metaphor and it resonates with me a lot. I heard you do it at the concert and just a short little version of it, and it's fun to hear you expound on it because it makes sense to me. We just recently, for the very first time in our life, we bought a home and I got to furnish it the way I wanted to. I got to remodel it the way I wanted to. And, we've lived in several houses together, but this is the first one that I got to make my own. Yeah. And there is something powerful about having a space that you've created, that you've designed, where every room reflects your thoughts, your feelings. We talked a little bit about this off air, but I had a friend one time, in a church lesson say, I just have what I would consider to be the gift of faith, she said. And I don't have a lot of questions. And I thought, wow, that's so amazing for her. And there have been times in my life I've felt that. And there have been other times where I've had those questions. And I think that it comes with a lot of fear to have a question bubble up. And I also think that it comes up with I'm worried about not pleasing people or ruffling people's feathers. And so I just want to let you know, I appreciate your transparency about it because I think there are so many people I love going through these faith. They don't need to be called deconstructions. Like you said, these faith journeys.
Yeah, we used to call them crises. And I was like, I hate that because it makes me feel like, sorry for interrupting.
No.
But I feel like that's like we treat people like, they're in crisis. We need to save them. Mm-hmm. And I think I used to adopt that same feeling towards myself. And that's where I realized I was like, so many of my friends just have questions. Yeah. They don't want to be feeling like they're falling into the depths of hell just because they don't know if God exists. And I just want to... I'm not going to shake them on the shoulders and be like, God exists. You need to understand. Otherwise you're going to hell. It's just not the approach that I have. But I feel so strongly about being myself in my corner of the garden. And if somebody wants to come over and plant seeds with me and they'd be like, wow, I was really moved by that. That's it. That's gospel to me. And that was enough for that day. And I feel really strong. I also feel strongly that it's not a weakness to be so sure about your faith. Mm-hmm. I think people that have embraced their doubts sometimes can go well, how can you never question anything? How can you just follow like a blind sheep? And I don't think that that's, again, nuance, but I don't think that that's necessarily true. It's we don't want to also, berate our friends who believe something so strongly that we don't, or that we don't understand, because that's their house, Anyway, I didn't mean to interrupt you.
No.
Yeah.
No, that resonates a lot. I think oftentimes, this topic of faith and stuff and where people fall, it's become something that's kind of a hard thing to bring up. It gets a little emotionally charged. And with the people that I love in my life, I found myself avoiding the conversation, just not knowing how to talk about it, how to navigate it. And I finally, and I've actually heard you say this before, but to be seen is to be loved. And to be loved is to be seen. And so I went directly to those people and I say, I see you in your journey. I want to be an ally with you. I'm here for you. I'm not in that place with you, but I see you and I want to be there for you. And they ended up that was a bridge between us. And we ended up together reading this book called Bridges. And it's a great book just because they had felt that maybe, by not being fully in, that people were seeing them as weak or wanting to be in sin or all those different things that come up with it. And that's absolutely not, the case, but it's good to have these mutual understandings of what both sides look like.
Right.
And to build the bridge from there.
There are so many things that I resonate with, what you just said. I think the more you learn from somebody personally about them, if we preach about a God and about Jesus Christ who knows you, he knows you personally and he knows everything about you, why wouldn't, and we try and be, Christ-like, why would our first thought not be, well, I want to understand where they're coming from? Mm-hmm. And I think sometimes people don't want to talk about it. Like I've expressed off air that I sometimes don't even know what to say my beliefs are because I haven't really figured out how to talk about it. I don't know what I would call that thing. And so sometimes people just aren't ready to talk about it. But I think for the most part, it's let them tell you that, and I think it's okay too to not know how to talk about things that you want to understand and to get it wrong. I think a lot of people, I've grown closer to a lot of people in my life by not saying the right thing the first time, but letting them tell me, hey, this is how I want you to talk about this, or let me educate you on maybe why we don't say this, and that also kind of goes to, I know we were talking about this earlier. I know that I'm a white person in a space of jazz, and I don't always know how to appropriately talk about the history just because I have lived in a bubble and I'm aware of that. And I want to educate myself more on how to appropriately talk about, where jazz comes from and the involvement of Black and African American communities in so many wonderful things that we have today, because I don't think it's you don't want to just sweep things under the rug. You don't want to just be oh, well, I don't want to get closer to this person. I don't want to understand them, so I'm just never going to, or I don't want to offend them, so I'm just never going to talk about it. I think you and I have both expressed that, to get to a better understanding and have more love and caring for that person, sometimes you do have to say the wrong thing and just let them correct you and just say, hey, this is actually how I want to talk about this. And I feel the golden rule when they say love others how you want to be, or treat others how you want to be treated. Mm-hmm. And then a while back I heard they're oh, well, now it's the platinum rule and it's treat others how they want to be treated. And I was yes, because so often we treat people, we're well, I just thought that that's what you would want because that's what I wanted. And if there's any person that follows the platinum rule best in life, then it would be God, right? God knows how we will see him. God knows how we will hear him. God knows how we want to be treated and how we want to be listened to and answered. And I think how we will find him. And so that's why we have all of these things like art and even things like four walls, religions and sermons and all the, it's different places for people to find God because God listens to you as the individual and is well, I want to love you and I want to show up for you how you want me to show up. Of course, to a certain extent, all of these things to their own extent. But I feel very, very deeply about learning to love people how they want to be loved. And that's been really great for me to just kind of think outside myself, for sure.
Yeah, I think having going back to that example that I shared of my friend who just has that faith, I think it actually can be such a tremendous and a beautiful strength to have to go through the struggle of the ups and downs, and I was thinking back, I was sitting in a BYU class one time and American Heritage, and they said a quote and I've never forgot it, but what we obtain too cheap, we esteem too lightly. And so that hard fought hallelujah, I love that phrase, but having to fight for it makes it more meaningful, more personal to us. And I really, I love your approach on it. And I love to just give it a voice and be we don't have to know. I think some of the experiences that you've maybe had have given you the empathy or the insight to then go and help other people in that same circumstance. Okay, so before we get too far away, I wanted to hear a little bit more about your mission. I know you wrote multiple songs on your mission. Can you kind of pick us up from Gotta Have Faith? Where did it go from there?
So it was really cool because I wrote Gotta Have Faith and then I posted on Facebook, and it was literally my mom and two other people that followed me on Facebook because I made my Facebook for my mission. And I never thought that I was gonna, I don't know, I really wrestled with do I want to be someone that I never wanted to come off as hey guys, here's a song that I wrote, you know what I'm saying? And I think though this it allowed me to share something that felt more like this is not about me, you know? So I wrote that song, and then a couple weeks later, I wrote Hear Him. And it was one of those things where I was like, oh, Hear Him. That would be such a great song. And I felt like the Spirit said to me, like, yeah, so walk over to the piano. And I did, and just, it just comes out. And I would write all of these songs in like 20 to 30 minutes, and I never would go back and like try and redo them. So that for me was like, this isn't me. This is something bigger than me that's writing these songs, that they're there, but I'm just sort of the vessel.
Yeah.
So every couple of weeks or months or whatever I would get just inspired, and I would physically be moved to a piano, and I would just write them. And I wrote probably like 20. I've written a couple in the last 5 years since moving back from Sweden to Sweden's where I serve my mission. I've written a couple, and I have one more album that's coming out that will be spiritual / Christian. And it's the rest of the songs that I wrote on my mission and some of the songs that I've written since coming home. And it's interesting because it sort of reflects the journey. And I actually haven't told anyone this, but it's going to be, I decided what it was going to be called, because I was kind of thinking like, you know, the first one's called Love Like You, and it was the name of the title track on the album. What am I going to do this one, you know? And I had a really good conversation with somebody a couple months ago that I did not think going into that I was going to get along with. And we found all the things that we had in common, and we talked about things that were really deep and personal in a way that we could talk about them together. And something that I had been thinking about leading up to the conversation was that it's everybody is a circle essentially, and it's an overlap with everybody else, and it's a Venn diagram. And some people overlap a ton, and some people overlap just barely, and it's that they're both humans on this earth. Yeah. We don't know anything else about them, and we don't think we have anything in common. Chances are you'll probably find some more. So, but since writing a lot of these songs, and through music, I feel like I am moved, and so I'm naming the album Moved. Ooh. And though it is spelled MOVED, it also sort of stands for middle of the Venn diagram. Ooh. So, because for me, I'm like, this album is about finding the middle of the Venn diagram. It's finding the joy, the love, the things we can talk about. The
common ground.
Yeah. So
I love that.
That's kind of where it's the music has been a journey. It definitely was like more intensely Christian in the beginning, and it's maybe a little bit more vague now, or just about love and maybe not explicitly about Jesus Christ. But I think it reflects who I am now in my journey, and I don't feel like I can write things about things that I felt in a different version of myself. And so as I was finishing out some of this album, I was like, I wanted to write some new songs, and I just was like, well, I can't really write another Gotta Have Faith or another Love Like You, Love Like You was actually written later, but some of these ones. So it will be interesting to see how this is received, because it's definitely a little smidgen of a different vibe. But I think it's very true to, it was when I did the first album, and it is now true to who I am and true to how I feel and who I'm trying to reach. And, but yeah, you're the first person to know.
I am so honored, first of all. But I also go back to your house analogy, and it's like you can confidently invite people into your home because you know you love it. So when you go put that album out, you can confidently put it out because you know it's true to you.
Yeah.
And, in the world of internet, people are gonna have all sorts of opinions. Yeah. But it's pretty cool to think that your piece can maintain because you built it.
Yeah.
And it's true to Emma Nissen. It's true to who you are.
One of the things that I've always believed in is angels. And it's a very nuanced, kind of niche song. But going back to my mission, I wrote this song called Gud finns här i Sverige. And it means God exists here in Sweden. And it's interesting because I've really been wrestling with, it was a song that was written for my mission. And as like sort of a mission, not theme song, but like something that we all sang when we were together. So it talks about being missionaries and, being disciples. And so it's very niche. But as I tell the story sometimes to an audience, if I feel like, oh, this is the right audience to receive this story and this song, it's all in Swedish, but people have come up to me and they're like, this is a song that I need you to do. And I feel like this is a song that I want to do, but I don't know if I should change the lyrics or if I should just make it instrumental. But I'll tell you the story and you can tell me what you think. But when I was on my mission, my morfar, which is my grandpa in Swedish, my morfar, he passed away 10 years ago, so 2015. And I was 15, so I was a little bit older. We had more of a relationship than not, but we weren't like super close, even though I am quite close with my mom's side. But he died suddenly. It was complications after surgery, and I just remember, like, we talked a lot about him being an angel, him being on the other side, him being close. And when I went on my mission, about 10 months in, I wasn't really writing any music. It felt not like the well had dried, but it was just like I was moving on to something else in my focus. And I got a call from, we call it the mission president. It's just the person in charge of all of the missionaries in that one area. He called me and he was like, hey, I know you've been writing these songs and we love them. We would like for you to write a song for the mission, something that we can sing that's, about us. And because we had like Pt.1, which means fight on in faith, was kind of a thing that we said. And he goes, it was October, and he goes, you have until December, like Christmas, if you want to debut it there for all of us. And just take some time with it. And if it doesn't work out, fine. But I would love to extend this challenge to you. And I was like, okay. I had never written a song based on a request before. I had always just been moved. Mm-hmm. And so I was like, I'll try. And also he was like, and here's the catch. Not really a catch, because it was part of my everyday life. He was like, I want it to be all in Swedish. But though I had grown up with hearing Swedish, I hadn't learned it until I moved there. Not really. And so I was like, oh my gosh, I've been speaking Swedish for 10 months. Like, it's probably not that great. And I was like, okay, I've got 6 weeks. I'll just really crank out some Swedish and just try and do my best. I hang up with him. About 20 minutes later, I get that feeling where I'm just like, physically, I need to find a piano. And my roommate at the time, I'm like, I have got to go to the church where the only place I know there's a piano. She's like, let's go. And so we walk, it's like a mile away. It's freezing cold. And we get there and I sit down and I start thinking about, we have this scripture that we quote, which is that we're disciples of God's Son, Jesus Christ, and we spread the gospel. And then this Pt.1, this fight on in faith. And so I'm like looking at it in English and I'm thinking, all right, how can I do this? My plan is honestly just to Google translate the heck out of this and just hope it rhymes, And I get this feeling so clear that like, why are you looking at this? I also, when I talk about like me and the spirit is a lot more sassy and irreverent than I think a lot of other people experiencing the spirit. But it's just because, me and the spirit, we were together a lot in the making of these songs. And so there's a great working relationship there, but sometimes comes across maybe as a little irreverent. But it's like, why are you looking in English? Like, what? This is supposed to be in Swedish. Did you not hear the man? Like, start thinking in Swedish. And I'm like, great. Well, you could like infiltrate my mind and like help me with some Swedish here. I'm like, and like a side note, my morfar, he was the reason why we all play piano. He played organ, he played piano. He was never religious. He would take my mormor, my grandma, to church and he would play the prelude. And then as soon as it would start, he'd go out and wait in the car. He like didn't want to be there, but he would be the music because that was God to him, Yeah. But he played the accordion. That was like a big thing that I remember growing up. And so flash forward back, I'm here and I'm thinking, okay. And then all of a sudden, I opened the scripture in Swedish instead, and all of a sudden, every Swedish word I knew, just like it's kind of this flow state.
Yeah.
And everything is like rhyming, sort of, at least well enough that it's starting to make sense. And So I write it all down, kind of like a poem, and then I'm like, okay, now I'm going to put it to music. And it just like starts to come out. And as I'm playing, I have to pause. And I look over to my roommate, I go, do you hear that? And she's like, you singing? Yeah. And I was like, no. And so I start, I'm like, oh my gosh. And I don't ask a second time because I know she's not hearing what I'm hearing. And I just turn around because I'm like, I hear the accordion clear as day. And I was like, there must be some old jolly man just with his accordion outside the church. But no, I knew, like, it was in my mind, you know, and I just felt like I remember I had one of those moments, like, it was almost like in The Office when you like look straight at the camera, but I felt like I was like, in my mind, I kind of had this funny dialogue where I turned around and I was like, Kay Morfar, I'm going to look at this chair. And I don't know if you're standing over here, go sit in that chair. So we're making eye contact. I was like, because we're having a moment, you know? And I just turned around and I was like, my eyes welled up with tears. I felt just like that whole complete warmth because I just felt, I believe in angels. And I felt like that was all of these lyrics and everything was from a man who on earth did not talk about religion, did not talk about God, but found it in his own way and communicated it through music, which was what was given to me. And I didn't know how to express it, but it all of a sudden was, you know, given through music. And the lyrics translated to English is just, God exists here in Sweden. He walks beside missionaries. Yes, we are Jesus Christ, God's sons, disciples, because God is here in Sweden. If it snows, if it rains, it doesn't matter. We fight on in faith. We spread the gospel to all of his children, to give someone their courage, to give someone their strength. Around our battalion meaning sounds like we're fighting, but just like us as missionaries in this little mission in Sweden, there are angels there to help and to support Sweden's missionaries. And we fight on in faith, to be an angel for somebody and to give them their strength. God exists here in Sweden. So it is very niche. It's very to, you know, like that experience in my life that does not really correlate to just like Christianity in general or other people's experiences. Like not everyone is like a missionary the way that I was. And so it's like, it's all these things. So I just kind of didn't know how it would translate, but it's been interesting because as I play it, especially for Swedes, they're like, this sounds like a melody. I've heard it from like 2 Swedes, but they're like, this sounds like a melody that I've heard before. Like it just sounds like an old folksy, which would have been, you know, what my Morfar played. And like the thing that kind of sealed the deal for me is just, I sent it over to somebody that, like a native Swedish speaker. And I was like, hey, can you just fix the grammar and the spelling? Cause you know me, and then just send it back to me fixed. And they sent it back and there was like, yeah, nothing's wrong. Wow. And I was like, well, that was not me that did that. That's really cool. So it's experiences like that though my faith and like my outlook on what, you know, God is, what the afterlife is, what life is, changes. I can't, it's not like I erase these memories that I have that tie me so deeply to spirituality. Yeah. I think that's what it was. And so I hold on to things like that. And I'm trying to figure out a way to put it on the album because I think it needs to exist in some way.
It's part of your story.
Yeah. So I'm sure you'll hear it in some fashion or another.
Can we get a snippet of it for the audience? I'd love to hear your, like the language that.
Yes.
Gud finns här i Sverige. Han går bredvid missionärerna. Ja, vi är Jesu Kristi Gud, sons lärjungar. För att Gud finns här i Sverige. Om det snöar, om det regnar, det spelar ingen roll. Vi kämpar, ja vi kämpar på i tro. Vi sprider evangeliet till hela hans folk och hjälper dem förstå att de är värdefulla. Gud finns hjälpa och att stödja Sveriges missionärer. Vi kämpar, ja vi kämpar på i tro att vara någons ängel, att ge dem deras mat. Gud finns här i Sverige, han går bredvid missionärerna. Ja, vi är Jesu Kristi Guds sons lärjungar, för att Gud finns här i Sverige. Ja, vi är Jesu Kristi Guds sons lärjungar, för att Gud finns här i Sverige.
What was that like to get a mission call to Sweden?
Crazy. I was convinced I was going to go to Arkansas. That is like just I felt deep in my bones I was going to be in the Bible Belt.
You're feeling those Midwestern vibes.
Yeah, I remember telling myself like God is good, but he's not this good to send me to Sweden, you know? And I did. I there's video of it. My obviously my parents filmed it, and when I opened up that letter, because that's what we do in our culture, is we open the letter and everyone's there, and I remember I go, "You've been called to," and I go, and I look at my mom and I point at her and she goes, "No way," and I go. And it was like this whole dramatic thing.
That really is so special, though.
Yeah, it was crazy because so my morfar, he was buried in a little town where my mom grew up, called Detours, and it's like 45 minutes outside of Stockholm. And when I lived in a neighboring city called Uppsala, which it's like 30 minutes away, I met up with one of my cousins and we went out for just like some dessert. And then, we were going home, we get on the same bus. And then we get off at the same bus stop. And then we're walking to the same, I'm like, Stina, where do you live? And she's like, I live right there. And I was like, I live right there. I was like, we're neighbors. So that was so cool because all of my cousins are all in Sweden. And when it was my morfar, he died and he was born on the same day in Sweden. And I was there in Uppsala when it was his birth/death day, and I got to go to his grave. He was his remains were scattered in this really beautiful field by a church there, and I brought this old guy in northern Sweden gave me an accordion, and we named it Frank. Everyone knew Frank. It's green Russian accordion, and I went and I just had this moment where I was able to like speak to my morfar the first time in Swedish, and I just sang Gud finns här i Sverige and played it on the accordion. And it was just like this, it was a very like, who gets to do that, So it was really, really beautiful. And I felt so grateful. And so like, it is something that will bless the rest of my life and already has. So I feel super blessed to have been able to do that.
I mean, Arkansas would have been great too.
Arkansas would have been great.
It kind of speaks to me in a way, for me, it's like you're known. That is extremely meaningful, I think, for you to get to learn the language in a way you maybe wouldn't have before. And then you mentioned you want to be back there someday, or you have dual citizenship, which is so cool.
Yeah, because of my mom. Yeah.
Which is so cool.
Oh, yeah. So. I will definitely be back there. Like, that's where I want to raise kids. That's where I want to, if I ever go back to school, because it's free education for me. So I'm like, I'm going back there.
That's on my bucket list of places I want to go.
I'll get a house that anyone can come and visit me. I'll just
call you up. Emma.
Just all, yeah.
Me and my 5 kids.
Yeah.
We're moving in.
Yeah, I'm like, hey, come and visit me. No, I that's actually like one of my biggest things is like, I want to have a house for me and my family in Sweden and anyone who wants to visit me. Because Sweden was so beautiful for me that I want other people to experience it. I'm like, I'll take you to get the best meatballs. I'll take you to the best lakes. I'm like, we'll go and do the whole thing. So come. Incredible. It's an open invitation.
Hey guys, it's Sarah. And sorry to interrupt. I had so much fun recording this episode with Emma. As you've heard and know, she's just the best. In full transparency, our conversation was almost 3 hours long. And so we've actually needed to break it up into 2 parts. You've just finished part 1. Stay tuned for part 2 next week, where Emma opens up about what she's learned in the moments that her faith has been challenged, and also her outlook on navigating criticism in the public eye. The fun is nowhere close to over. There are 3 more musical numbers to be heard and so many more stories to share. So hit that subscribe button and turn on your notifications so you don't miss a thing. If you've enjoyed this episode and want to hear more behind the scenes stories from artists like this, please comment, rate, review, and especially share. Lastly, want to send a huge thank you to Talmadge Thane and his team at Film Lab. They're the ones that produce this show, film this show, edit this show. They're who make this show possible. We'll see you back here next week for part 2 with Emma Nissen.